diner hummed with Sunday chatter, forks scraping plates, coffee steaming in chipped mugs. In a corner booth, an old man sat alone, his thin frame hunched under a threadbare jacket. His name was Henry Carver, 83, with snow-dusted hair and a prosthetic leg that creaked softly when he shifted. On his wrist, a faded tattoo. A coiled rope knotted around a star caught the morning light. To the crowd, it was just ink, a relic of youth or folly. Bet he scratched that on in some back alley. A man at a nearby table snorted, his friends chuckling. Henry's fingers tightened around his water glass, his face carved by years of silence, unyielding as weathered oak. Outside, Veterans Day flags fluttered on lampposts, their red, white, and blue fraying in the breeze. Inside, Harper's diner was thick with bacon grease and indifference. A young server, her apron stained, hesitated by Henry's table. "Sir, some folks, they're saying your spot's making them uneasy. Could you move outside?" Her voice was soft, but the words cut like a cold wind. Henry nodded, his eyes tracing the worn floorboards as he gathered his tray. A child's voice piped up, "Why's he got that funny leg?" Her father hushed her, muttering, "Just an old drifter. Don't stare." Laughter rippled from the center table, sharp as shattered glass. "A soldier? Him? I'm the president, then." Henry pushed the door open, the bell jingling like a faint cry. The sunlight was harsh, the outdoor tables empty, their metal frames cold against the November chill. Each step was a battle, his cane tapping, his tray wobbling. A single tear slipped down his weathered cheek, unseen by the bustling diner. No one followed. No one cared. The tattoo, that quiet mark, held secrets no one bothered to ask. A rope and star, tying him to a past of courage, loss, and promises kept in the shadows. It was more than ink. It was a vow, a lifeline, a memory of men who trusted him to bring them home. What would you do? Would you look away? Or would you see the man behind the mark? This is the fall of Henry Carver, a veteran whose silent service was buried under scorn. But in a single moment, a spark of recognition would unravel his story, weaving a thread of honor through a room blind to truth. The rope and star, dismissed as nothing, would soon bind a community to a hero they'd forgotten, pulling them from ignorance to awe, from mockery to reverence. The diner's door clicked shut behind Henry Carver, the bell's chime swallowed by the clatter of plates and laughter inside Harper's diner. Outside, the Veterans Day sun burned bright, bleaching the empty patio tables where Henry settled. His prosthetic leg groaned as he eased into a metal chair, his tray of cold eggs and limp toast wobbling. The tattoo on his wrist, a rope coiled around a star, caught a glint of light, its faded lines a map to a past no one saw. Inside, the diner thrummed with life. Families swapping stories, servers weaving through tables, coffee steaming in mugs. Out here, it was just Henry, the hum of passing cars, and the ache of being invisible. The laughter from the center table. Bet he's no soldier, just a drifter. Stung like gravel in a wound. The rope and star, mocked as a scribble, held a promise Henry had carried for decades, a thread tying him to a friend lost in a jungle's roar. Clara, a young server with tired eyes and a stained apron, watched Henry through the diner's window. 2 months at Harper's hadn't dulled her knack for noticing the quiet ones. Henry's careful movements, balancing his tray, his cane, his dignity, reminded her of her grandfather, Sam Wheeler, whose war stories were locked in sighs and silences. Clara's fingers tightened on her rag, her heart snagging on Henry's solitude. She remembered Sam's old photos, men in fatigues grinning despite the mud, their eyes bright with a camaraderie she'd never known. Sam had been a mechanic in Cambodia, fixing jeeps under fire, his hands steady even when his heart raced. His sea shanties, hummed in the quiet of their porch, were her lullabies. Clara saw that same weight in Henry's slumped shoulders, the way he traced his tattoo absent-mindedly. The rope and star wasn't just ink. It was a story begging to be heard. Henry ate slowly, each bite a ritual. This wasn't about the food, a Veterans Day special he'd scraped pennies for. Harper's Diner was a shrine to Tommy Vance, his best friend in Sparrow, a covert Navy unit from 1969. Henry had been their radio man, callsign Finch, relaying coordinates through Cambodia's jungles, guiding operatives with a voice that never cracked. His role wasn't gunfire or glory. It was precision, memory, a whisper in the dark that brought men home. On a supply run, a mortar shell ripped through their team. Tommy, the point man, took the blast, his body shielding Henry, who lost his leg and his world in one deafening flash. The mission was classified, their sacrifice erased from headlines. Henry returned to Willow Creek, opening a bike shop, fixing kids' wheels for free, his only badge the rope and star tattoo. Sparrow's emblem, inked in a tent by 8 men who swore to never forget. Now Henry might be the last. Inside, the diner pulsed with indifference. At the center table, 4 men leaned back, their laughter sharp. That tattoo? Probably a bar bet gone wrong. One smirked, his buddy nodding. If he's a vet, I'm a senator. The words sliced through the air, landing where Henry couldn't hear but could feel. A woman in a blue coat paused her fork, glancing at the patio, then turned back to her pancakes, her lips tight. Tom, the manager, fidgeted behind the counter, his rag polishing the same spot. He'd heard the complaints. That old guy's creeping folks out, but chose silence, his eyes dodging Henry's shadow. The jukebox crooned a Patsy Cline ballad, its notes soft against the diner's hard edges. The rope and star, unnoticed, held a quiet power, waiting for someone to see its truth. Clara moved through the tables, pouring coffee, her mind tethered to Henry. Sam's stories, fragmented and rare, surfaced in her thoughts. A jeep stuck in mud, bullets pinging off metal, his hands steady as he worked. He'd come home hollow, his medals tucked in a drawer, his shanties the only echo of a war he couldn't share. Clara saw that same silence in Henry, the way he sat like a stone against a tide. She slipped into the kitchen, pulling out her phone to search rope and star tattoo. Nothing. But the image burned in her, a puzzle she couldn't shelve. She thought of Sam's dog tags, hidden in her dresser, their weight a reminder of a man who carried more than tools. The rope and star was Henry's tag, a song of survival she needed to learn. She scribbled a note, "Ask him." But a shout for more toast yanked her back to the rush. At a counter stool, Eli, a 10-year-old with a mop of curls, sketched on a napkin. His pencil traced the rope and star he'd glimpsed on Henry's wrist as the old man passed. Eli was a watcher, always drawing the world's edges. Cracked sidewalks, stray cats, now this tattoo. It wasn't flashy like the ones on his cousin's video games. It was old, worn, like a secret carved in skin. "Mom, that man's tattoo is cool," he said, nudging his mother, Lila. She glanced up from her phone, distracted. "Sure, Eli, eat your eggs." Eli frowned, his pencil digging deeper, shading the star's points, the rope's loops. He'd once found a rusted bullet casing in his grandpa's attic, heavy with stories he could only guess. The rope and star was Henry's casing, and Eli was determined to hold it. His grandpa, a Korean War vet, had been a quiet man, his medals hidden, his stories locked in long stares at the horizon. Eli felt that same mystery in Henry, a puzzle he needed to solve. Henry's tray was nearly empty, crumbs dusting the plate. He leaned back, the chair's metal biting his spine. His prosthetic leg throbbed, its straps frayed from years of use. His pension barely covered rent and heart pills, leaving no room for repairs. He didn't complain. He'd fix bikes for Willow Creek's kids, taught them to true a wheel, never asking for payment. But today's laughter, the server's request to move, hit like a mortar's echo. He touched the tattoo, his fingers lingering on the rope's curve. It was Tommy's voice, planning milkshakes at Harper's, promising, "We'll make it, Finch." The jungle's heat, the radio's crackle, Tommy's grin. They lived in the rope and star, a vow Henry kept alone. He closed his eyes, the diner's noise fading, replaced by a memory. A jungle night, stars piercing the canopy, Tommy's laugh cutting through the hum of cicadas, the calm before the blast that changed everything. Inside, Eli's sketch grew sharper, the rope and star taking shape. He squinted at the patio, catching Henry's wrist as the old man sipped water. "It's like a code," Eli muttered, his tongue poking out. Lila, finally noticing, leaned over. "What's that, hon?" Eli pointed outside. "That man's tattoo. It's not just a picture." Lila followed his gaze, her brow furrowing. She saw Henry's solitude, the way he sat like a rock against a tide. Her father had been a vet, distant, his medals hidden in a drawer, his stories buried in silences she never bridged. She touched Eli's shoulder. "Maybe you're right." Clara, clearing a nearby table, overheard, her eyes flicking to Eli's napkin. The sketch mirrored her own curiosity, the rope and star a spark between them. She slipped to the counter, grabbing a notepad to jot down her thoughts. Ask him. Find out. The diner's rhythm pressed on, but the thread was tightening. The center table's laughter flared again, bolder now. "If he's a soldier, I'm a rock star." One man scoffed, his voice carrying. The others cackled, their plates piled with bacon. A trucker at the bar glanced over, his jaw tight, but said nothing. The woman in the blue coat stirred her coffee, her eyes darting to the patio, then away. Tom, still behind the counter, wiped his hands, his face flushed. He'd let the complaint slide, let Henry be pushed outside, and the guilt gnawed at him. The jukebox skipped, Patsy Cline's voice cutting out, leaving a hum of silence. Clara's pen paused, her notepad trembling. She wanted to shout, to defend the man no one saw, but her voice stayed locked. The rope and star, dismissed as nothing, pulsed with a story ready to break free. Henry opened his eyes, the jungle fading back to the patio's glare. He pulled a folded letter from his jacket, its edges yellowed, the ink faint. His commander's words, to the voice that never broke. He hadn't read it in years, but its weight was constant. Tommy had been Sparrow's heart, always joking, always first to run toward danger. The mortar hit at dawn, Tommy's body a shield as the world exploded. Henry, bleeding, his leg gone, crawled to the radio, calling in the chopper through static and pain. 5 men lived because of him, but Tommy didn't. Henry kept the letter, the tattoo, the promise to sit at Harper's, toasting Tommy with every bite. The rope and star was their bond, a knot no time could undo. He remembered Tommy's last night, the way he'd carved their initials into a tree, swearing they'd share a milkshake when they got home. That tree was gone, but the rope and star held the carving's echo. Across town, in a cramped library, Mrs. Lena Holt shelved books, her glasses slipping. She'd known Henry for years, seen him fix her grandson's bike, never charging. Lena, a Navy brat, had grown up on her father's stories of shadow units like Sparrow, men who worked in whispers, their courage hidden in classified files. Last week, Eli had come to her, napkin in hand, asking about the rope and star. Lena recognized it instantly, her father's voice echoing in her memory. Sparrow's radio man saved lives with a radio and a will of iron. She'd pulled a 1970 Gazette clipping from the archives. Local man awarded Silver Star. Henry's face, younger, stared back, his tattoo just visible under his sleeve. Lena gave Eli the clipping, her voice soft. He's a hero, but he won't say it. Eli, wide-eyed, tucked it in his pocket, the rope and star a spark he carried back to the diner, fueling his need to know more. Back at Harper's, the morning stretched on, the diner's noise a steady pulse. Clara moved through the tables, her mind still on Henry. She thought of Sam's shanties, the way they'd rise and fall like waves, carrying stories he couldn't tell. She imagined Henry in that jungle, his radio crackling, his voice steady as bullets flew. The rope and star was his anchor, tying him to men like Sam, like Tommy, who trusted him to guide them. Clara's notepad lay forgotten on the counter, her resolve hardening. She'd cross the patio, ask Henry his story, make him seen. But a crash of plates in the kitchen pulled her away, her chance slipping like sand. Outside, Henry sipped his water, his gaze distant, the rope and star glinting faintly, a silent witness to a life of service buried under years of neglect. Eli's pencil moved faster, the rope and star filling the napkin's edge. He nudged Lila again. "Mom, it's like a secret code, like Grandpa's medals." Lila's eyes softened, her father's memory surfacing. A man who'd sit on their porch, staring at the stars, his hands tracing invisible maps. She'd never asked his stories, and the regret stung now, mirrored in Henry's solitude. "You're right, Eli," she said, her voice low. "Let's find out." Eli grinned, his sketch trembling in his hands. Clara, wiping a nearby table, caught Lila's words, her heart quickening. She glanced at Eli's napkin, the rope and star a bridge between them. She grabbed her phone again, typing Sparrow Navy tattoo, her fingers shaking. A faint hit, a forum post about covert units, mentioned a rope and star emblem, but no details. It was enough to keep her searching, the rope and star pulling her closer to Henry's truth. The diner's door burst open, the bell clanging. Lucas Reed stepped in, a 29-year-old Navy SEAL on leave, his boots heavy, his eyes sharp as flint. His black jacket hung open, a dog tag glinting at his neck. The chatter dipped, heads turning to watch his purposeful stride. Lucas scanned the room, then froze, his gaze locking on Henry through the window. The rope and star flashed in the sun, unmistakable. In SEAL training, they studied Sparrow, the shadow unit whose radioman, Finch, turned chaos into salvation. Lucas's pulse quickened. He'd heard of Finch's extractions, his radio calls saving 17 men in '69. Could this be him? The diner's noise fell away, the rope and star pulling Lucas toward a truth he couldn't walk past. He'd grown up in a military family, his father a Gulf War vet who spoke of quiet heroes who never sought glory. Lucas felt that legacy now, urging him forward. Lucas crossed the patio in 3 strides, his boots crunching gravel. "Sir," he said, his voice low but clear. "Were you Sparrow?" "Call sign Finch." Henry's hand froze over the tattoo, his eyes meeting Lucas's, wide with disbelief. "Long time ago," he whispered, his voice gravelly. Lucas snapped to attention, his salute crisp, cutting through the morning air. "Finch, you're a legend. Your extractions are in our manuals." Henry's chest tightened, a wave of disbelief crashing over him. Inside, the diner went silent, faces pressed to the glass. Clara dropped her notepad, her breath catching. Eli clutched his sketch, his eyes wide. The center table's laughter died, their faces paling. Lucas turned to the crowd, his voice rising like a tide. "This man saved lives with a radio and a will of steel. If anyone's uneasy, they can step outside." The silence was a living thing, heavy with awe. An old man near the counter stood, clapping slowly, his hands trembling. A mother joined, then a cook, until the diner roared with applause. The men who'd mocked slunk toward the door, one leaving his coffee steaming, their shame a weight they couldn't carry. Tom stepped forward, his voice shaky. "Sir, I'm so sorry. Your meal's free. Please, take our best table." Henry shook his head, a faint smile breaking through. "No need. I'm here for a friend." Lucas's eyes softened. "May I join you, sir? I want to hear about him." Henry nodded, and they sat, the rope and star glowing, no longer a joke but a beacon of honor. Lucas listened, his heart heavy, knowing his father would have saluted Henry, too, for carrying the quiet hero's burden. Clara, rooted by the window, blinked back tears. She approached, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry for earlier. My grandpa, he was in Cambodia. Sam Wheeler." Henry's gaze sharpened. "Big Sam?" With the laugh like a storm, Clara nodded, stunned. Henry pulled a creased photo from his jacket. 3 men in fatigues, grinning under jungle vines. "Sam, me Tommy. Your grandpa lived because of him." He tapped Tommy's face, his voice breaking. "We lost him here, in this diner's shadow." Clara's hand covered her mouth, tears spilling. The rope and star tied her to Henry, to Sam's shanties, to a war she'd only felt in silences. She hugged the photo, her resolve hardening. Sam had once told her about a radio man who sang shanties to keep them calm, a voice that never broke. That was Henry, she realized, her heart swelling with gratitude. Eli, clutching his napkin, slipped from his stool. He crossed to the patio, his sneakers scuffing. "Mr. Carver, I drew this." He held out the sketch, the rope and star rough but true. Henry's eyes crinkled. "You've got a sharp eye, son. You see what matters." Eli grinned, his chest puffing. Lila, watching, felt a pang. Her father's medals, her own silence, mirrored in Henry's solitude. She joined Eli, touching his shoulder. "You're right, kiddo. He's special." Clara, back inside, tore down the bulletin board's clutter. Old flyers, faded ads, and pinned-up photos from the diner's storage. Soldiers, nurses, a young Henry in dress blues, his silver star gleaming. The rope and star was the wall's heart, a symbol of heroes Willow Creek had forgotten. She added a note, "Wall of Honor," her hands trembling with purpose. The diner's air shifted, applause fading to reverence. Patrons sat straighter, voices hushed. The jukebox paused, its hum replaced by a soft crackle. Tom, shamed, brought fresh coffee to Henry and Lucas, his hands trembling. "No charge," he muttered, his eyes low. He thought of his uncle, a Vietnam vet who died alone, his stories untold, and vowed to do better. The center table was empty, the mockers gone, their laughter a faint echo. Lucas listened as Henry spoke of Tommy. His quick wit, his dream of Harper's milkshakes, his sacrifice. "He took the blast," Henry said, his voice steady. "I got the chopper in, but not for him." Lucas nodded, his throat tight. The rope and star, inked in a jungle's quiet, was their vow to remember, now shared under the patio sun. Clara pinned the last photo, a grainy shot of Henry's Silver Star ceremony, his face young but heavy. She scrawled "Wall of Honor" on a card, the rope and star its anchor. Eli, back at his table, started a new sketch. Henry and Lucas, their heads bent, the tattoo clear. Lila watched, her eyes soft. "We should have seen him sooner," she whispered. Eli nodded, his pencil flying. Outside, Henry unfolded his commander's letter, its ink faint but unbroken. "Read it," he told Lucas. "It's not about me." Lucas's voice caught as he read. "To the voice that never broke, who called us home." The rope and star carried that voice, waking the diner from its blindness. Clara, watching, felt Sam's presence, his shanties echoing in her chest, urging her to keep this moment alive. Lena's library, a haven of musty books and lemon polish, held another piece of Henry's story. Eli had returned after the diner, his napkin sketch now taped to a notebook. "Mrs. Holt, what's Sparrow?" he'd asked, the Gazette clipping in his hand. Lena smiled, her glasses slipping. She'd grown up on Navy bases, her father a signalman who revered units like Sparrow. She pulled another archive, a 1971 letter to the editor praising Willow Creek's silent hero for saving lives in Cambodia. Henry's name was there, his tattoo described, a rope and star, Sparrow's mark. Lena shared her own memory. Her grandson, now a mechanic, had learned to fix bikes from Henry, who'd spent hours teaching him, never asking for thanks. "He's the kind who carries others," Lena said. Eli nodded, the rope and star aflame he'd carry forward. Weeks later, Willow Creek hummed with Henry's story. The Gazette ran a front-page spread, the salute that shook Harper's. Lucas's salute, captured by a patron's phone, spread online, shared millions of times. Kids taped rope and star drawings to Henry's bike shop, their crayons bright against the peeling paint. Clara, inspired, started a veterans coffee hour at Harper's, pinning Sam's photo beside Tommy's. She shared Sam's shanties with Henry, their laughter stitching old wounds. One night, she sang Shenandoah for him, Sam's favorite, her voice cracking as Henry hummed along, his eyes wet. Eli's clipping, shown to Lila, sparked a school project, kids interviewing vets, their stories filling notebooks. Lila joined, interviewing a neighbor who'd served in Vietnam. Her father's silence finally finding words through her pen. The rope and star wasn't just Henry's. It was Willow Creek's, a thread pulling the town to its heroes. The coffee hours grew, veterans finding solace in Clara's questions. One, a woman named Ruth, shared her story as a nurse in Saigon. Her hands still steady as she described stitching wounds under lantern light. Clara pinned her photo beside Sam's. The rope and star a silent nod to all who served. Tom, now a regular at the coffee hours, brought his uncle's dog tags. His guilt easing as he listened. He started a fund to repair veterans' homes, his first check for Henry's shop. Eli's sketches multiplied, his notebook a gallery of faces, Ruth, Henry, a pilot named Joe who'd flown medevacs. His school hosted an exhibit, the rope and star on every page, drawing tears from parents who'd forgotten their own vets. Lila, proud, framed Eli's first sketch, hanging it in their kitchen, a reminder to keep asking, keep seeing. The following spring, Willow Creek held a ceremony for its silent veterans. Henry spoke first, his cane steady, his voice clear. I'm no hero. I did my job like thousands who got no cheers. Remember them. Lucas, in the crowd, saluted, his hand over his heart. The town renamed a street, Sparrow Way. A plaque outside the town hall reading, Honor the Quiet Ones. The rope and star etched beside it. Henry's shop became a refuge, veterans sharing coffee and silences that spoke louder than words. Clara, training new servers, taught them to ask vets their stories, her grandpa's laugh in her smile. She'd found Sam's old journal, its pages filled with shanties and sketches of jungles, and read it to Henry, their bond deepening. Eli, now 11, sketched the ceremony, his book of heroes growing, the rope and star a constant thread. Henry's shop, once a quiet corner, buzzed with life. Veterans like Ruth brought their grandkids, teaching them to patch tires as Henry had. Joe, the pilot, told stories of flying through storms, his voice steady as he described spotting Henry's radio signals. The rope and star was their shared language, a knot tying their sacrifices to Willow Creek's heart. Clara organized a veterans' picnic, the diner's patio filled with laughter, kids drawing ropes and stars in chalk. Tom, now a friend to Henry, built a ramp for the shop, his hands calloused but his heart light. Lila volunteered, her interviews now a town newsletter, each story a brick in Willow Creek's new foundation. Eli's teacher, moved by his sketches, started a history club, kids digging into archives, unearthing more heroes like Henry. On Henry's 85th birthday, his shop door swung open. Lucas, now an instructor, stood with 6 young seals, their eyes bright. Clara was there, her kids holding a cake, their giggles filling the room. Sam would have loved this, she said, hugging Henry. He chuckled. Tommy would have swiped the frosting. The seals listened as Henry spoke of Sparrow. Tommy's courage, the radio's crackle, the jungle's weight. Lucas, teaching recruits, wove Henry's story into every drill. The rope and star a symbol of duty's quiet strength. Clara's daughter, Mia, drew a rope and star on her wrist with marker, whispering, For Grandpa Sam. The tattoo, once mocked, tied generations, its knots unyielding. Mia's brother, Sam, named for their grandfather, sang a shanty Clara taught him, his voice high and clear, bringing tears to Henry's eyes. The birthday was more than a celebration. It was a reunion of souls. Ruth brought a quilt she'd sewn, each patch a rope and star, stitched for Henry's shop. Joe gifted a model helicopter, its blades painted with the tattoo's design. Lila read a letter from her newsletter, a vet story of survival sparked by Henry's tale. Eli presented a new sketch, Henry under a jungle tree, the rope and star glowing. The room hummed with stories, laughter, and the clink of coffee mugs, the rope and star weaving them together. Lucas shared a memory of his father, who taught him to honor the quiet ones, his voice breaking as he saluted Henry again. Clara, watching Mia and Sam play, felt Sam's shanties in her chest, a song of resilience that Henry had kept alive. 3 years later, Henry passed, his funeral drawing hundreds. Lucas and 5 seals carried his coffin, their steps precise, their faces solemn. A veterans group, moved by Henry's story, gifted a new prosthetic leg for his final rest, a nod to care long overdue. The rope and star graced his tombstone. His voice saved lives. His silence shaped us. Mourners wore pins of the tattoo, now a town emblem. Clara placed a milkshake glass by the stone for Tommy, Sam, Henry. Eli, now a teenager, published his sketches, the rope and star on the cover, his dedication reading, "For Mr. Carver, who taught me to see." The diner, the town, the world felt the thread, woven tight by a faded mark that refused to fade. Ruth spoke at the graveside, her voice steady, thanking Henry for showing her that nurses, too, were heroes. Joe flew a ceremonial pass overhead, his choppers roar a final salute. Harper's kept the wall of honor, new photos added yearly. Clara's coffee hours grew, veterans finding home in her questions. She sang Sam's shanties at each one, her voice a bridge to the past. Lucas, on every tour, carried Henry's photo, telling recruits, "This is why we serve." His father's lessons, once abstract, now lived in Henry's story, a legacy he passed on. Lila's newsletter became a book, Willow Creek's Quiet Heroes, with Henry's chapter first. Eli's history club grew, kids visiting Lena's library, their questions unearthing more ropes and stars. Tom expanded his fund, rebuilding homes for dozens of vets, his uncle's memory honored. The rope and star, once a whisper on an old man's wrist, became a shout of honor, pulling Willow Creek from indifference to reverence, from silence to a song that echoed beyond its streets. Henry Carver's story ends not with a shout, but with a whisper that reshaped a town. From the fall of Mockery in Harper's diner, through the reveal of his silent heroism, to the rise of a community bound by respect, the rope and star wove a legacy of courage and compassion. His tattoo, once dismissed as a scribble, became Willow Creek's emblem, a knot tying past sacrifices to present gratitude. Henry's quiet dignity, sparked by Lucas's salute and carried by Clara's care and Eli's sketches, turned indifference into reverence. His funeral, with hundreds wearing rope and star pins, wasn't just a goodbye. It was a vow to remember the unseen, to honor the silent ones who gave everything. The milkshake glass by his tombstone, left for Tommy and Sam, held the weight of promises kept, of lives saved, of a man whose silence spoke louder than any parade. This story stirs the heart because it mirrors our own blind spots. Henry's journey, from scorn to salvation, reminds us that heroes walk among us, their stories hidden in worn jackets and faded ink. Calls us to courage, to see beyond appearances, to ask the questions Eli dared to ask. It's about resilience, the kind Henry carried through jungles and diners, and hope, the kind Clara and Lucas kindled in a town that learned to listen. The rope and star binds us to a truth. Compassion doesn't need a spotlight. It shines in held doors, shared stories, and quiet nods that say, "I see you. Look around." Who's sitting quietly in your own diner? Their story untold? Reach out, ask their name, hear their truth. Share this story by commenting "honor" to thank the veterans who served in silence. Subscribe to Daily Narrated Stories for more tales that crack open the heart, weaving threads of humanity that remind us to stay kind, to stay curious, to stay true. Henry's rope and star lives on, pulling us closer to a world where no hero goes unseen.